What's going on, everybody? D Style here. I'm being joined by, we're here together anyway. I have Joe B from Ringside Reporter. We're live on Ringside Reporter. Live, hit that like button. If you're listening on the archive, hit the like button. Share the video on all your social media platforms and subscribe if you like the content on here. You know what I mean? He's got a nice little membership too. You can click on the join. You know what I mean? We got some idea. I gave him an idea yesterday. He might implement it. So if you want to join, just $3.99. It's not that expensive. But let's get this started. Look, man. We were talking, believe it or not, we were just talking on the phone and we were like, you know what? Let's just go live. Let's just have this conversation in front of everybody. You know what I mean? Let's share this knowledge. Let's share this with the world. Ladies and gentlemen, boxing scene comes out, all right, with different numbers, right? Boxing scenes report. Well, what did they report? Be like 200 to 225,000, something like that?
Between 200 and 250 or 225 and 250.
Okay, more or less, which is way different than the 61,000 Ray Glacier put out, right? Now you have people on two camps, so who do we believe? Here's what I want to say. Ray Glacier had already been planting seeds saying, oh, don't believe anything Boxing Scene says because they're owned by CBS. CBS owns Showtime. So there's like they're going to make stuff up, right? You take what they say with a grain of salt, he said. Let me just remind everybody that CBS is a publicly traded company. They're public. They're not a private company. They have investors. They have stock shareholders, okay? They can't just go out and lie about the finances, right, on one of their events. They just can't do that. It's like that's stupid. And why would CBS care that much? So you're telling me that CBS Corporation, the heads, were sitting at a table, right, with their suits, right, making their 6 or 7 digits a year, and said, man, we really got to protect this this image of Tank Davis. He was on Showtime pay-per-view, and this guy, Rick Glacier, on Twitter said he did 61,000. We need to protect him. We need to come up with a story. Go tell the Boxing Scene guys, go order them to say it was 200,000, right? Because we need to do some serious damage control right now, right? You're telling me that's what they did. So CBS told the staff at Boxing Scene to put out the story in order to, counter the damage that Ray Glacier caused on Twitter by putting out the number of 61,000. What are your thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, 200 to 215 is a far cry from the 61,000. And again, this is going to sound like I'm bashing Rick Glacier. And, I am not a Tank Davis fan. Everyone's seen these last couple videos that I've done about Tank Davis. And I've been very critical of PBC, and I think I've switched sides a little bit. I'm not really a PBC lover, and you can probably classify me as a PBC hater at this point because I hate what they've been doing these last couple of years in the sport of boxing. So I have no motive, desire, or interest to defend Tank Davis or defend the PBC. But one thing I do have to defend is logic and common sense. And when I just know something is wrong, I have to just point it out, and I have to give my opinion on it and explain why this is wrong. Now, the way this works, and it's not rocket science, right? Showtime is the distributor of the pay-per-view, and they're using several cable companies, satellite companies, and digital platforms across the United States to telecast this pay-per-view. So there's a lot of data that has to be collected from Showtime. Information is being funneled back to them through various sources, right? So this is a complex thing. And again, Showtime, a lot of times, and a lot of these distributors, they haven't been releasing pay-per-view numbers because, again, they're not like they were before, right? They're not these millions or 500,000s or 700,000s. So again, whether we want to question 200,000 or 215,000 is good or great numbers, it still is a far cry from the 61,000. So the only ones that are going to have access to these numbers is Showtime and people that work at Showtime who have access to these numbers. Steven Espinosa is the only one that has access to these numbers. He's going to be given this data first. So there's virtually no way Rick Glacier can get this information unless Steven Espinosa gives it to him personally, right? And a lot of people are talking trash about this boxing scene report and how it doesn't have a person's name on it. But again, it's virtually a press release. It's not really an article. They're taking the information that was given to them by Showtime, and they're just copy and pasting it basically, right? And they're adding a little bit of their own information on there, but virtually it's a press release. And when you have a press release on a website, you and I both work for websites. When we got press releases, right, we didn't put a journalist's name on it. We just put staff, or we just put whatever the website was. We didn't assign that press release to a writer, right? So it's essentially a press release. So that's why it is what it is. Now you wanted to jump in with something. Go ahead.
Well, it's like this. So when I was with Hailstorm and we released the story of Eric Morales popping dirty, I typed it out, but it didn't have my name on it, right? But we all know it ended up being true. Like that doesn't mean anything, right? This idea that they didn't put a name because as if that would, like, let's say Jake Donovan would have wrote the story, right, and put it out there like that. So is Ray Glacier telling us that he would have believed it then?
Yeah.
Nothing they would have put out in any way, shape, or form, whether it was a press release, a writer had put in his name, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Like Rick Glacier would have said it's bullshit anyway, because he needs to say that, because he knows the 61,000 is ridiculous. Now, here's another reason why I kind of like, people keep saying he knows a lawyer in LA, and okay, cool. Look, that I know that's not a way to know. I just know. All right. So. And I'll explain it a little bit, but let me first say this. I do want your take, Beep, on this specifically. What do you think of the idea that CBS Corporation would care so much about the image of Tank that they're going to go out and lie and go instruct boxing scene to protect the entity that is Tank Davis?
Well, first of all, I don't think they would do that. But number one, when Dana White made a statement about the McGregor Mayweather numbers, right? And he gave the worldwide numbers, right? Mm-hmm. The international numbers, right? And he didn't specify that that's what he was giving. Steven Espinosa came out and said, no, that's not what it did. And he came out with a lower number just to basically clarify that the domestic numbers were these numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Dana White said it was like 6 million, but that was, like I said, the global international number, and I believe the domestic number was 4.2. So Steven Espinosa came out and deflated an inflated number because he doesn't want false numbers out there. And again, I'm not a Steven Espinosa fan either. I think he has a way of saying things without saying them, but something like this, which is data, right, and cannot be fudged, really. I mean, you can't give false numbers if you're a publicly traded company. You just can't. You can't give false data out there, because when you give numbers, there's revenue tied to this. So you cannot put out false information when revenue is involved if you're a publicly traded company. It's the repercussions to doing that are not good. It's one thing giving your opinion on, like, saying something about a fight or a fighter or whatever, but when something financial is attached to it, like these pay-per-view numbers, right? Where you're a publicly traded company, and when you put these numbers out there, it's going to affect how people invest in your company, right? Because, like, again, it's dollars and cents attached to this, right? There's no way. And Steven Espinosa came out and said, we, as a publicly traded company, we cannot lie. We can't do it.
100%. 100%.
He can't lie about this.
Like, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Beeb, if you don't mind telling people, how do you order your pay-per-views?
I use the remote.
Okay. So basically you have a set-top box. That's what it's called. You order with the remote, and it goes to your set-top box. And then when do you pay for the pay-per-view?
I just got my bill today, actually. And I purchased the pay-per-view 2 weeks ago. And I get my bill.
When do you pay it?
I get my I get my bill direct debited the first of every month. So it takes roughly, when I buy a pay-per-view.
So on the 1st of February, your pay-per-view is going to be paid, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right.
That's when the money's taken out.
Unless the beep calls in to complain and get a discount or something. But other than that, you know what I mean?
Let's not get it taken away.
You know, so here's the deal. A good amount of people, that's the most convenient way to order, okay? Some people may order, even if you order on your app, if you don't have a prepaid service, okay, it gets added to your bill, and depending on your billing cycle, it may not even count that pay-per-view, all right, until it's actually paid, until it's downloaded from the set-top box, okay, and it's paid, all right? So anyone who comes out and says 61,000, now I'm about to say some, and you're going to see, like, you cannot give a raw number like that soon. It's impossible. Even if it was that low, you would have to give like some type of an estimate, because you can't possibly know, all right, how the pay-per-views are coming in. There's no way to know. This is why, and all this is not, I keep seeing in the chat, I believe this, and I believe the number. There's no belief here. It's all facts. That's it. It's the way it works, all right? There's a reason why pay-per-view numbers go up after a couple months, okay? Because sometimes the numbers are still coming in, all right? There's people that don't, there's people, believe it or not, don't do what Beep does and do what Direct Debit it, okay? They're always paying their bill like a month and a half behind. Okay, so they order a pay-per-view and it gets added to their next bill, all right? And then they don't pay it till the month after that. Some of the pay-per-views don't get counted till almost 2 months out. That's why the numbers go up. That's why De La Hoya Mayweather was reported 2.1 million. A couple months later, 2.4 million. Once everything was tallied up. That's why Haddon Mayweather was reported at 850,000. Later, it went over 900,000. That's why that happens. The numbers go up after a certain period of time. So anyone who just comes out and says, "Oh, I did 61,000, it topped at that," I know you're fucking lying, because I know how the industry works. I know how pay-per-views are tallied. All right. So I used to, back in the day, not anymore. I used to know the raw, real numbers from Dish. Okay, I knew what the Dish numbers were. And when I would look at the Dish numbers, right, literally like what the customers ordered, how they ordered up, what the total was, okay, and I understood the trends, okay, of the industry. Usually, all right, Dish was about, it would depend, but with boxing, the total orders were close to almost like 30% of all the pay-per-view buys, okay? So I can do an estimate depending on what it sold. And now DirecTV and Dish together, all right, was sometimes over 50% of all the orders, okay? So I could do a rough estimate that way. But in order for you to know all the numbers, you have to have the numbers from Dish, DirecTV, Fios, Comcast, Spectrum. I mean, I don't know who else I'm forgetting, but there's a lot of cable, Cox Cable.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot.
Yeah, yes. Like you would have to know a lot. All right. You would have to know a lot of these, like these companies, right, to get the raw numbers. And you would have to understand the trends and how they work. All right. Here's another trend for you. And I want anybody to answer this for me. When have you heard of a pay-per-view doing less on revenue than at the gate? That's ironclad. That's that I could give you a trend with that. Like, these are raw. This is not, oh, I feel like it didn't do, or I believe. No, this is raw numbers. Beep, let's do a little exercise here. Let's go Canelo Golovkin. Fight number 1. Fight number 2, fight number 3. Which one sold the most pay-per-views?
The first one.
And which one had the highest gate?
The first one.
And what was higher, the pay-per-view numbers or the gate?
Pay-per-view numbers are always higher.
Always.
There's never been any event in the history of combat sports where the gate exceeded the pay-per-view numbers. It's virtually impossible.
It's virtually impossible. It's virtually impossible, because if there's demand for a fight, like let's say Golovkin Canelo, to the point where almost 30 million at the gate, right? The idea that people are not going to buy it on pay-per-view is ridiculous. Okay, that's stupid. And you can follow it. The second highest pay-per-view for their fight, second highest gate, second fight, third highest, third fight, third highest gate, their fight. All of them, the trend is the same. All right. Highest pay-per-view of all time, most sold ever. Mayweather versus Pacquiao. What's the highest gate ever, Beep?
Mayweather versus Pacquiao, 72 million.
Second highest pay-per-view ever. Mayweather versus McGregor. Second highest gate ever. Mayweather versus McGregor. All right. You could go down the line. Look at Wilder. His pay-per-view didn't sell with Hellenius. It didn't do 5 million at the gate, though. All right. That shows you there was no demand for Wilder versus Hellenius. The gate was abysmal. I think it did less than 1 million or something. And if it did over, it's a little bit. But it still did more on pay-per-view revenue. Like 99.9% of the time, it's going to do more on pay-per-view.
Let's address this here. Dan Raphael had a number for Canelo pay-per-views 2 days after. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways because I didn't believe that number either. You know what you're supposed to believe? You're supposed to believe that the distributor of the event, when they send out a press release, right? When they send out a press release and they're a publicly traded company, then you believe that press release. And why do you think the number is in between 200 and 215? Because as D-Style said, right, that is a projection, right? Because they can't count everything. It takes sometimes months to count the whole.
You got to look at trends. You got to like stuff like that. And you project, yes.
So once again, you're absolutely right, Nando Lamos. Thank you for your $4.99. Dan Raphael had a number for Canelo's pay-per-views 2 days after, and you can't have it both ways, D-Style. And D-Style, and I don't want to speak for him, but he didn't co-sign that Dan Raphael's number either, because he worked in the industry. He used to work for Dish. He knows the business. He knows that people that work at Dish cannot just give numbers out randomly to people, because that is a conflict of interest. They get fired for doing that. That is confidential information. When a cable company or a satellite company or a distributor, right? They can only give that information to legally the distributor of the event, whether it be ESPN pay-per-view, Showtime pay-per-view, right? Or DAZN, if they're working with DAZN, and DAZN is selling their pay-per-views via cable companies and satellite companies. They're not allowed to just randomly give that out to guys like Rick Glacier and random lawyers. That is not how it works. So unless you get a press release from Showtime or ESPN, right, or DAZN, that's what you believe. Don't believe people, right, that release numbers, right, 2 days after an event. And when you do get a number like you got from Showtime, right? When you do get a number from them, usually 2 weeks out, it's usually a projection, right? And they'll give you the final number probably possibly a month or a month and a half, 2 months later. But it's impossible. Bob Arum told me this before several times on the phone. It's impossible to get pay-per-view numbers. When I used to say, "Oh, so-and-so said this," they're idiots. It's impossible. It's ridiculous that they would say that. You know how many cable companies and satellite companies and platforms are distributing this, are televising and broadcasting this event? It's impossible to know right now. So yeah. We can't have it both ways, and we never said we could. We never said we could.
It's like this. Well, digital numbers could be, obviously they're prepaid, so you could get those a lot faster than postpaid numbers, right? And while prepaid is kind of taking over like the digital world, we still have enough postpaid, like Beeb orders, for example, with his remote control. When I order boxing pay-per-view, I do it on my television. Again, it's postpaid. Okay. There's people that live in rural America that do it postpaid. Okay. I was the first one that came out, Nando, and I said, there's no way Dan could have these numbers, because DAZN was also selling the fight, on pay-per-view with all the providers and stuff. So I don't understand what your point is exactly. Like, there's no way to know after a couple days, right? What you can get, though, is a projection. So let me give you an example. When Pacquiao Mayweather, like, I was looking at the trends that week, right? I personally called Joe Habib before the fight, and I said, this is before the fight, Beeb, I remember you said it was going to do 3 million. I'm telling you right now, it's going to do way more than 3 million because of the way the trend is looking, right? You can look at stuff like that. So you look at the trends. You look at the way it's sold, like the day of, because most of the pay-per-views and a lot of people do prepaid that way, right? You can get an estimate, right? But usually, because they're publicly traded companies, right, like CBS in this case, before it was Time Warner with HBO, they were conservative with their estimates, okay? Which is why more often than not, the number ended up being slightly higher than what they originally said.
And the
Mayweather,
why,
the lawyer was projected at 2.1. And then when they tell it all up, it was 2.4. So go ahead.
And the reason why you had an idea is because you know how many you knew roughly how many people were satellite subscribers, you knew how many people were dish subscribers, and you know how many people were DirecTV subscribers, and you knew how many people because you had to know this because you have to know your competition.
So we knew the percentages that usually
you knew percentages of cable companies versus satellite companies, and you could do a rough estimate based off of that, because so you're saying to yourself, if we're doing this many, then we can just estimate how many they're doing, and then you can come to a number that way. You mean you were in the business, so
and you know what, Beeb? It's more complicated now than it was then. Back then, it was just the cable companies.
More cable companies now. There's more digital.
Now we have the digital companies, right?
Yep.
I have no idea how people know the digital numbers unless they tell you.
Do you think someone from Showtime is just randomly gonna talk to some lawyer that Rick Glacier knows and say, this is what we did? And again, do you think it would be possible to get all this information in 2 days? Because even now, it's still
and then they have like a specific number. It ended at 61,000, just like that.
Come on,
that's how I knew it was bullshit. You got to up your game with your lies. Start coming up with you give us a ballpark range in the future. It's a little more believable.
Yeah, and then
too late now.
And then Rick Glacier will have his plausible deniability and make up these ridiculous things. And I'm going to repeat this one more time. It is illegal for CBS, Showtime, Stephen Espinosa to lie about numbers that are attached to financial information if you are a public traded company. This is not opinion. This is fact. That's why even these numbers are still projections, right?
By the way, where do we get that they've always been inflating numbers? Like, if anything, boxing has always been pretty conservative with the numbers they put out.
They have to be conservative.
Like you know who would inflate their numbers a lot and was not 100%, like he was in line, but he was not being truthful at the same time, is Dana White, right? Because he would tell people, oh, this pay-per-view did 1.3 million. But what he wouldn't tell people is that he's counting buys from the UK. He's counting, like, there's some countries where they sell UFC events for $5 a pop. Like, so he was lying. Like, he wasn't lying, but he wasn't saying, oh, these are the domestic numbers or these are international numbers. Because let me give you guys an example. You remember Mayweather versus Haddon, right?
Right.
It did about 900,000 here in the U.S., right? It did, if I remember correctly, like 1.5 million in the U.K.
Yeah.
If they reported numbers, okay, if the way UFC does, right? HBO would have came out and they would have said, "Oh man, we did 2.4 million for this event. You know, look at all these buys, 2.4 million buys. Like, you know, like that's what they would have said." But boxing is always, since the reason they always do the domestic numbers, okay, here's the reason why. HBO was not going to put out numbers, okay, and add the numbers from Sky TV. Because that was irrelevant to the numbers they made, right? and that would be irrelevant to their stockholders or shareholders. They don't care what fucking Sky TV did over there on the other side of the pond, right? So that's why they got to give the real raw numbers here. Okay. Now, if you believe, like, if you want to believe that Ray Glacier exposed the real numbers, it topped at 61,000. He already counted all of them, right? If you want to believe that, despite all the everything we've already explained, and you want to believe that the CBS Corporation, literally had a hand in this and what I know, we need to do some damage control because of the story Ray Glacier put out, right? The tweet he put out, by the way. We need to do something about this. So go tell the Bucks and seen guys to say it was 200,000. Go tell them. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous, bro.
And isn't it a coincidence that Rick Glacier only releases numbers for PBC events and none other? He didn't release numbers for that DAZN event with Canelo and Golovkin. Isn't it funny and coincidental that it's always a PBC event that is releasing numbers for, and then when the real number comes out, you can just say they're lying, not me.
Yeah.
And again, if you know anything about law, and I have to keep hammering this home. Stephen Espinosa said it clearly during an interview, right? And I'm not a Stephen Espinosa fan, and I'm not a Tank. I am not a Tank Davis fan. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'm not a Tank Davis fan. Let's just say that. So I have no dog in the race. If anything, I would be biased against PBC, biased against Tank, because you do roundtables with me every week, and you watch my show every Sunday. Have I been complimentary to the PBC or Tank Davis these last 6 months? No, I have not. Anything but. So I'm not a fanboy. But again, I cannot go against logic. And I got bad news for a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
Really bad news for a lot of people out there who are complaining about these pay-per-views. They're not going away, and I'll tell you why.
That sucks.
And all you guys who probably got an F in business law because you listen to Rick Glacier, you're also going to get an F in economics if you listen to Rick Glacier and the rest of these knuckleheads in the media, right? I'm going to give you, I already gave you a class in business law. I'm going to give you a little class in economics. So we know, or it was reported, and I tend to believe this, that Tank Davis got 1.5 million guaranteed and Hector Garcia got 300,000. That was reported. That's 1.8 million. So if we do the numbers, right, and we're going to go on the low side, we're going to say that this did 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Times that by the 75, that's 15 million plus the $5 million gate. And these are all conservative numbers here, right? So that's 15. That's going to be, excuse me for 1 second. Let me add this in. Bam. That's 20 million, right? So then we take the 40% out that the cable companies and satellite providers get, right? That's 8 million. So we get 12 million left, right? And then out of the 12 million, Showtime gets the 10%. The distributor gets 10%. So we subtract that. So there's $10.8 million left, right? They're not losing money on these pay-per-views.
You know what I find funny? I find it funny that Rick Glacier's lawyer, or the lawyer he knows, has access to the DAZN numbers. He has access to the CBS corp numbers. Like that lawyer must work for everybody, bro.
So we got $10.8 million left after Showtime and the cable companies get their cut, right? So they're not losing money, bro. As a whole, they're not losing money on these pay-per-views because Tank Davis has been averaging around 200,000. And if they're going to keep giving him a $1.5 million guarantee and give his opponent anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 to $400,000, they're going to keep doing these pay-per-views. They're not losing. They're not losing. And here's the thing, man. If you guys go back to the days of the 1 million pay-per-view buys and you look at the 800,000s and the 500,000, there was always only a select few, right, that would get that, right? You had Cotto, who was a good performer, pay-per-view, Canelo, Pacquiao, Mayweather. But outside of that, you didn't have in this generation, you didn't have guys. Now you had Joshua over in the UK, you have Fury now over the UK. Wilder did some decent numbers with Fury, but outside of Fury, Wilder has not done great numbers, right? So when you look at the guarantees that fighters are getting today, as opposed to what they were getting back then, the money's been different. So the money has been adjusted to
Right.
be able to work for these fighters now, and so they're not losing money because the guarantees are significantly less than what they used to be. So that's why these pay-per-views aren't going away. It's actually better for Showtime to do this because they're putting up they're not paying a rights fee, and they're getting 10% off the top to do virtually minimally nothing in terms of production costs. They're doing some production costs, but very little, as opposed to if they were carrying the fight and paying the distribution fee. So it's actually a win-win for everyone around here, as long as they keep the guaranteed minimums where they've been keeping them. So they're not going away, unfortunately.
They're not going away, unfortunately. But I will say this, though. For anyone who thinks we're on here trying to cap or tank,
I don't like tank.
I mean, keep in mind, you have idiots like Jason that go around Twitter call me a racist because I don't support PBC. Do I sound like the dude that's here to cap or PBC? No. He's over here calling Bieber, oh, Bieber, you're a racist because you always criticize BBC, and I'm a BBC fanboy. I'm always swinging off the nuts of the ghost Al Heyman, okay? So just keep that in mind. And then Ray Glacier is the complete opposite. He despises PBC. So, and you guys, you can't just roll with that. You can't just say, oh, well, he said it, so, and he's been in boxing for a while, so, okay, but does that mean that he knows what the numbers are? So, look, Michael Buffer, he said, Rick did release the numbers on the zone. He said 500K, right?
He was wrong. He copied and pasted Dan's numbers.
But here's my thing. I'm sure he's not going to say that. But what he will say is, oh, I know a lawyer. I know a guy in the industry. Okay, so this lawyer knows everything, bro. This lawyer works with all the cable providers. He works with the Zone. He works with all what a lawyer, right? I mean, is this the sound like a lawyer you could trust? This lawyer he knows?
We had a great conversation offline, and I apologize for interrupting you. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
When you talk about the sources discussion that we had offline too, because that was a phenomenal point you made, and a lot of people don't realize this. But go ahead, touch upon that.
Look, Beep, and I'm not going to talk about the fight, but I'm just going to make a point. There was a fight that happened last month. There's something I knew about it. All right. I didn't tell anybody about it, okay? Even though I knew, all right? Because that's character. What type of a source keeps giving out? Just think about this for a second. I'm not saying anonymous sources aren't possible, okay? But if you have individuals like Coppinger, if you have individuals like Ray Glacier that keep saying things like, oh, I know of this guy. He's in the industry. I know someone in the business. They keep telling me this information. That's how I know, right? So, but it's anonymous, yada, 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 right? If someone keeps feeding somebody information, if somebody keeps getting private information, and that person that's getting this private information keeps feeding it to the same person over and over again, that speaks to character, okay? That's what that speaks to. So you would have to believe that the people giving this person this information haven't caught on to the idea that this person is a liar, that this person is a snake, that this person is a rat, okay? A snitch. They just keep doing it over and over again. You have to question the validity of this snitch. You have to question how believable they are. Either they're making up the fact that this person exists, or this person's a real piece of shit that keeps revealing secret information that they shouldn't be revealing, right? Now, I think it's the latter. And I think it's the latter because most of the time, especially with Coppinger, this shit turns out to not be true. So either Coppinger is believing a liar, right? Believing somebody with low character, which is possible, right? That's why it ends up not being true half the time, right? Or they're making up this individual, right? It's one or the other, bro.
Either way, they still have plausible deniability because then they can say, well, my source lied, not me, right? Or they can create the source, right? Or it could just be a very insignificant person that could just be just saying something as an opinion, right? And sources say. It doesn't say sources confirm. It says sources say. So the way everything is worded, it gives the person that reports it and puts sources say in front of it. You have plausible deniability.
I've always said this. We need a batting average for all these individuals, bro. And this is what I mean by that. Okay, like in baseball, like I'm sure everybody, it's America's pastime. Y'all got to know. You guys know how batting average works, right? Every time a reporter comes out and says sources say, you're at bat, and if you strike out, you're at .000, buddy, right? We need to come up with a report card for these guys and have a batting average. Like, when this guy says sources say, man, he has a batting average of .906. Yeah.
And here's another thing, and I'm going to name drop here because I don't give a fuck. I don't make money off this. Well, not real money, anyways. But here's the thing. You remember when Dan Raphael used to work for ESPN, and every time he came out with a story, his sources were always revealed because he was so respected because he worked for ESPN that people would tell him things in confidence and they wouldn't care about it. Now when he's not with ESPN anymore, do you ever notice now how everything his sources say now? Because he's gone over to the dark side, because he knows that now he's joined this band of clickbaiters, right? He's joined the band of clickbaiters now. And he's even gone head to head with promoters, and promoters will come out and say, hey, you're wrong, Dan. And he'll call the promoter a liar. The promoter that's actually putting the event together and is in charge of dealing with the financials of the event. And he'll go back and forth on Twitter with the promoter and call the promoter a liar. Oh, well, I got told something else. Dan, I mean, like, this is what happens, bro. This is what boxing media has become. It's turned into TMZ. It's turned into the National Enquirer. And people like the things that they're being given. They like the things that they're being told. They like this confirmation bias. So anytime something is said to them, right? Anytime something is said to them and it fits what they want to believe and it fits their narrative, they're going to roll with it, right? They're going to roll with it. So Rick Glacier is not lying, but Showtime is, or Steven Espinosa is, right? And again, Steven Espinosa can be tricky. He can manipulate and he can dance around things and exaggerate and pretend this and that. But again, we go back to the financials. You can't fuck around with the financials.
Look, shout out to Al Money. Thanks for that super sticker, Al Money. Much appreciated. I want to address this right here, okay? Because again, we actually already addressed this, guys. We already talked about all this, but I'll try to abridge it a little bit. KDDR 7989 says, "What up, ringside reporter?" That's him. My question is, why did it take the whole boxing scene staff to push out an article for Tank's numbers? And how did everyone stumble on the numbers all of a sudden after Rick put out the 60K? Because you're framing it in a way that makes it sound more complicated than what it is, okay? It didn't take the whole boxing scene staff to do it, okay? So you're telling me you think everybody at boxing scene, they all huddled up, right? And they were all in front of a computer, right? And they all had to get all their minds together to come up with that article because it was such an articulate article. Okay, that thing was like Shakespearean to the point that no way one individual could have just typed it out, right? I mean, just listen to what you're saying, bro. Right? They didn't put it out all of a sudden. Pay-per-view numbers always come out about a week, week and a half out, 2 weeks out. They always do. Always. Like most of the time. That story when it came out, if regulation never said anything. Because they always, like, when have they not put out Tank's numbers, babe? Is there a trend that they never put out Tank's numbers?
They always put out Tank's numbers.
Like, the trend is they always put out the numbers.
They always do. So
I'm trying to understand, and from my understanding, Tank came out and said 250. So I'm just saying, this idea, this is how this works, all right? Ray Glacier comes up with a number out of his ass, right? And then he projects and he says, see, watch, boxing scene, they're owned by CBS, so they're going to come out and they're going to give different numbers. But boxing scene comes out and reports on everything. They're called boxing scene. They report on everything boxing. Every day they report shit. They report numbers on fights that Ray Glacier doesn't even talk about.
Why would Showtime give their numbers to some lawyer, some random lawyer in California? Why would they even do that?
I think the argument being that it's like a lawyer.
This whole thing, doesn't it sound ridiculous?
Again, no, but here's what I'm saying. Let me say this. I think they're saying, I believe anyway, the argument is this is a third-hand source. I'm not saying this is something somebody told me in the comments on my other video. The argument is that it's a lawyer that works for like one of the sponsors, like for a lot of boxing sponsors, and they need to know the numbers because they get paid off of it, right? No. But here's the deal. While they have sponsors, need to wait for the numbers. I had a cousin did a concert here in El Paso. He had sponsors, right? He didn't pay the sponsors the next day, like 24 hours later. Okay, the numbers were this.
That's not how sponsorships work. Sponsorships don't work that way. Okay, you get a flat rate for a sponsorship, and that's that. When someone sponsors you,
they think the sponsorships are getting like a pay-per-view cut pretty much.
That doesn't make sense. Come on, that's not how it works. I don't know when you got. What this stuff just sounds too outlandish.
Yo, this is crazy. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like the sponsor guys pays a flat fee, and yes, they're taking a risk and a gamble, right? On how many people are going to see the sponsorship on the ring mat or on like Hennessy just pays Canelo a flat fee. Like Hennessy's not going to get a cut. It's like think about how stupid that is. Who's going to take a sponsor that takes more money from you the more money you make?
We've had sponsors before, you and I, and we've lost sponsors before. Yeah. We've gotten flat rates to do ad reads before. And if our numbers weren't what they were supposed to be, what happened? We lost our sponsorship. They took I was sponsored by Manscaped, and we weren't doing the numbers they wanted us to do, and we lost the sponsorship. I was sponsored with I had a deal with Mega Fit Meals. Remember, I was doing the Mega Fit Meals ad reads. I wasn't selling the meals they wanted me to sell. What did they do? They pulled the Mega Fit Meals away.
Did it pay you per view?
No, I got a flat rate. That was it. That's what I mean. Oh, we're gonna pay you based on that. That's not how it.
You know what? I think that they're confusing it with commercials. The way commercials work. You know what I mean? I think that's what's happening here. Like this is crazy, bro. Like this, and then how did this lawyer give him the information for the zone numbers? Like he works with the zone too, or what?
Oh, it works, bro.
Man, this is great.
Showtime is a distributor. They're working with cable companies and satellite companies and digital platforms all across the country, and it's going to take time for all of those cable companies, all the satellite companies. And you got Fios in the mix now. You got digital in the mix now. They have to count everything.
I'm going to put this out there right now, okay? And it's not a secret or nothing, but HCP, I'm sponsoring In the Ring with Christine, okay? So I'm giving her a certain amount, or giving women encouragement a certain amount, right? Because she does a lot of good work, a lot of like she owns a nonprofit gym, like she does a lot of good stuff, right? She works with the Olympians, stuff like that. So I want to help her out. I'm giving her a flat fee. Like I'm there's no like, if she has a video that goes viral and gets a million views, like, it's not like, oh, Dista, you owe me like a lot of money. Like that's not the way it works, bro.
You just renegotiate next time your deal expires. You
I
usually
probably won't afford her anymore if she goes viral, but it is what it is.
Like we had a fucking 6-month deal with Manscaped. After 6 months, they were like, your numbers suck, and you know we don't want to do business with you anymore. That's it. Simple and plain. That's how it works. You know, simple and plain. That's how it works.
What do you say to people saying, why are we talking about the numbers?
Why are we talking about the numbers? Because again, we're men. We like money. We like business. This is this is what do you want us to talk about? Like fucking finger painting? I mean, I like finance. I like money. I like economy. I like business. I talk about business every day. I have fucking mutual funds. I have fucking money market. I like money. So I talk about money because I like money. And any man that tells you they don't like money, then I get, I have to question their masculinity, because that's a masculine trait, being able to be strong, to be financially secure, to provide for your family. Money, that's what money's all about. So that's why I like money. I don't know. You guys can talk about, whether you like money or not. That's your issue. But I like money. That's what I mean. That's what men do. Men like money. They talk about money. Talk about
here's the deal. So, guys, like, business is a part of boxing. Like I'm not saying only care about it. Like it's a part of it. In order, like, you need to understand why certain things happen or don't happen. You can't just be oblivious to it, right? Like, and I don't want to hear, oh, they don't talk about business in other sports. Yes, they do.
All the time.
All the fucking time. So you're telling me you don't keep track of, like, I'm a football fan. So I know where the salary cap of the Bills are, right? I know what they're paying Josh Allen. I know what they're paying the receivers. I know that next year they're not going to afford every single player. They're going to have to let go of some guys. I look at the draft. What type of players should they draft? Because that matters. Certain players positions make more than others. Like, that stuff matters. The same with basketball. Like when LeBron James, one of his contract ends, all that is business. Oh, the Lakers are offering him this, but this team's offering him that. Oh, will this player go over here? Will he take a pay cut to play with him? Does he want to take a pay cut to go get a ring? Like, all sports, all of them, they play for prize money, like all of it. So I don't want to hear Ronaldo right now. He's playing in Saudi Arabia, right? Why? Oh, why is he doing that? I don't care about business. I don't care about. Well, then you need to understand that they're offering him a lot of money. That's why he's playing over there.
Listen, anyone that tells me that money's not important, I don't care about money. I don't. Why are we talking about? I run away from people like that. I don't like fucking with people that don't care about money.
And why do I care about pay-per-view? Because don't you care if people give a fuck about the sport? Like you know what I mean? You don't want to know, like, how much, like, bro, it's called prize fighting. Like, it's like this. When Jack Dempsey had the first ever $1 million gate, that's how they promoted it. We've always known, like, this is a record-breaking event. Lewis versus, Tyson Holyfield, right? It broke the pay-per-view record at the time. They talked about it. So, boxing fans, they care too much about numbers nowadays. Boxing fans have always cared about numbers, bro.
Life is numbers, bro. Everything is numbers.
Like, I remember what the Golden Boy was making, what De La Hoya was making, and I remember, like, my uncle saying shit like he should give Chavez a rematch. He'll make more money fighting Chavez in a rematch, and it ended up being true until he made more against, I think it was Trinidad, right? So at the end of the day, like, people have always cared about the numbers, always. So you don't care if an arena, like, this is why you should care about gates. It tells you about demand. It tells you people give a fuck about the fights.
Listen to how these people sound. You're paying for boxing with money, but you don't care about money. You don't care. So I don't care about money. You're paying for pay-per-views. You're paying for fucking digital platform subscriptions. You're paying a cable bill. Oh, I don't care about money. So now come on, bro.
Oh, but I stream it. Okay, some of you actually pay the illegal streamers, so you're still spending money, right? And then, or some of you, yes, you go to crack streams or whatever, but like they put ads in your face. It is what it is, bro. Like someone's making money off of it, right?
Do you and I know the actual numbers? No, we don't. But I feel very comfortable in saying that those numbers are much closer to 200,000 than they are 61,000.
Look, if
I'm not going to say I know what those numbers are, but using logic, right, and understanding business, and just not
understanding trends,
just not subscribing to fucking ridiculousness, right, and succumbing to this ridiculousness, I'm going to say it's a lot closer to 200,000.
How do businesses come up with schedules, right, for employees when they work with people? They have algorithms and they have trends, right? Like, for example, they don't know for a fact that the restaurant's going to get more packed on Mother's Day, but trends show us that every Mother's Day is the busiest day, right? So you're going to staff everybody. You tell everybody, hey, don't call in on this day, all right? We want everyone here on deck on Mother's Day, okay, when we open the restaurant, whatever, right? It's the same with this. Like, if you look at pay-per-view history, the trends of it, okay, you can make an algorithm out of it. If you look at the gate, you could almost predict what the pay-per-view is going to do. Almost. Not 100%. But I do know that 60,000 is way too low. Yeah. Because once again, never have I heard, and if there has, it's happened maybe one time. I've never heard 99.9% of the time.
I don't think it's ever happened. I don't think it's ever happened.
Let's just leave that 1.1% just in case. 99.9% of the time, the pay-per-view revenue does more than the gate. Every time. Okay. And one more point I want to make. I want to talk about the streaming really quick. I don't think people realize this, Beeb. Even though Mayweather Pacquiao broke the record for pay-per-view, it was still streamed by more people than ever. Right? When, like, demand is demand. Like, when people want to watch something, that's demand, right? If they steal it or buy it is a different story, but demand is demand, okay? I didn't hear anything about websites crashing because of the tank fight. Like, I didn't hear any of that. Like I didn't hear that, oh my God, a record number of people were streaming this fight. And like Logan Paul, Mayweather did 1 million or whatever, right? And it was streamed by more people than ever. And it did over 1 million. Because there's demand for it, to watch it. So there's no one could show me that the more people stream it, the less people buy it. The trend's actually the opposite. Because when there's demand, everything's higher. The amount of streaming's higher and the buys are higher. Okay? That's what the trend shows me. Every single time. Mayweather McGregor, I'm sure, was illegally streamed by millions of people, but it still did the highest numbers ever. Okay, I am positive that all Mayweather fights were streamed by Mayweather. Canelo was streamed by millions of people, but it still sold what it sold. So just saying, well, people stream now, therefore, no. You know why? Because when there's demand for a fight, okay, the Tank Davis fight with Raleigh. My brother invited me to go watch that fight, right? And he invited people over to his house. He had a cookout. You think he's going to put his fucking laptop? All right? You think my brother, who makes like $90,000 a year, is going to put his fucking laptop connected to his fucking television, right, in front of everybody, okay? And go to a website so people could stream and watch it? No. Okay? It's about status. He's going to order the fight. I got this, okay? He ordered the fight, all right? And that's that. Like, that's just the way it is. when people get together to watch fights, look, if you're a person that invites people over and you put the laptop or your Fire Stick or some shit, okay, and you're illegally streaming it and you let people see that, I mean, that's kind of like walking into a store and stealing a candy bar, right? And showing it off to your friends. Are you really going to do that? I mean, I don't know. It's me. People still buy.
I didn't want to do this, but I'm gonna have to do this. Let's just assess Rick Glacier's credibility. He was a matchmaker, and he was a matchmaker from 1999 to 2014, and he did work with Don King briefly, very briefly. I know he worked with Lou DiBella, and he had an issue with Lou DiBella, and Lou DiBella does not like the guy. So the guy has roughly a 15-year career in the business, and he's been a matchmaker for 23 events. So if you were to round that off, right, in 15 years of him working in the industry, that averages out to 1.5 events a year, basically. So if you're a matchmaker and you're only, and you've been a matchmaker for 15 years and you've only done roughly 1 to 2 events a year, I mean, what kind of how like this guy, he's not freaking Robert Diaz or anything like that. Like he's not like this big guy in boxing like he perceives himself to be and leads you guys to believe. He's not, as in. He's burned a lot of bridges from what I've been told, right? Burned a lot of bridges from what I've been told, and he's not really held in high regard. Like you guys put him up there as this larger than life guy. He's not what you guys think he is, to be perfectly honest with you.
I just want to say this. It's a point goes over somebody's head. So Jixer said it's about status. LOL. It's only $80. That's my point.
That's my point. If you can't afford $80,
like, I know a lot of you think 80 is like, oh my god, oh my holy. And look, I'm not.
Look, you can't afford $80. How does it make you look?
Look, I don't want to minimize. Like, look, there's people out there living paycheck to paycheck. This is expensive for a lot of people. I'm not trying to minimize that. Okay, but my point was, okay, how stupid will my brother look? Yeah. Illegally streaming a fight that only costs him
$90,000. Why would you not want to spend?
People be like, "What the fuck's up with this dude?" Like,
we're not taking shots at people who can't afford it.
That's why I use the example of the candy bar. That's why I use the example of the candy bar. Like somebody like stealing the candy bar and then you show it off. Like, oh, look at what I stole, man. I didn't pay for this Hershey bar. Like, shit's 50 cents, bro. Just pay for it. What are you doing? Right? So look, and a lot of times people can't afford it, but they stream it because they're watching it at home. They're not inviting people over. So it's like, and it's more about principle than money. I get all that. Okay. I'm talking about the reasons the pay-per-views still sell. If it's an event, if there's demand for an event, okay, there's no demand for it. You don't even want to watch it, even if it's free. Okay. Like, that's just the truth. So like, but if there's demand, the trend always, when there's demand, okay, the illegal streams are up, the buys are up, people gathering at their homes are up. It all goes up. There's never a case where there's so much illegal streaming that nobody buys it. That's not how it works, because everyone's situation is different and everybody watches it in a different way. There's people that don't have internet, so they got to buy it, okay, because they live in or maybe they do have internet, but it's not fast enough to live stream, for example, okay, or they live in a rural area. Or the example I gave you, you're inviting people to your house to watch a fight. You're not going to illegally stream it unless you're a sinvergüenza, unless you're not embarrassed to do it. But that was my point.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. And we've already done the math. And like I said, they're not losing money. So you can sit there and say, I'm not going to buy it. And you could try to make a stand, but someone else is going to buy it. Enough people are going to buy it where they're not going to lose money. I'm not sitting there saying that all these events are making money, but collectively they're not losing, because if they were losing, they wouldn't keep doing it, right? You'd see less and less pay-per-views if it wasn't working. right? But they found a way, right, to cut production costs. They found a way to give fighters a little bit less money, right? They found a way to make this work for themselves financially. So it is what it is. And you still have the Canelos, you still have the Furies, you still have the Joshuas who are going to command those big dollars. And, you know, they're once again, they're generating the money. So you can say what you want, but collectively, these events as a whole are not losing money. So it is what it is.
Yeah. So one more point. We got to close out, guys. Got to get rolling. But look, Clarissa's saying, I'd be more embarrassed to say I paid for Tank versus Hector, right? Look, it's all about demand, guys. It's all about demand, right? The argument of, well, I believe Glacier's numbers because illegal streaming is at an all-time high, right?
It's not.
Well, the thing is,
crazy.
If the fight is so trash and nobody wants to watch it, why did it do $5 million at the gate? Well, why are you making an argument that everybody was streaming it? So people wanted to spend their Saturday night still watching Tank fight then, at the end of the day.
Listen, the streaming numbers are inflated too. I think people go overboard with that.
When there's demand, everything goes up. The streaming goes up, the buys go up, all of it.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, this is D-Style from Rinse Reporter. Hit the like button, by the way. We're out. Peace.